So our last speaker coming up here is Scott, who really wanted to be here, and he already had a commitment from yesterday, so we actually rearranged the whole schedule so that Scott could also do both. And what we're really excited about is the decision-making tools that Scott has been developing that help us see in real time, like, how do we decide what to do? And so we invited you to come up here for that.
Certainly a pleasure to be here, and thank you, Janine, for your vision and all that you've done to make this possible, and to the Center for all your fantastic work. Hopefully what I have to offer is useful in terms of where we go. I want to start with just a few statements. I believe that we're better off as humans when we tend to find commonness. So that's an interesting thing to discuss maybe later. Is that really true? Do you believe that? I believe that when we find commonness, it's something that moves us in a positive direction. It doesn't mean that we're the same. We're finding commonness in our differences, potentially. And I believe that we tend to find commonness in different ways. We find it in administrations, or we find it in government. We find it in laws. But what my life's work has been about is trying to find commonness in standards. Finding commonness in the way that we put things together and build things so we know that we're heading in the right direction. And I've been fascinated, especially, I ran the LEAD program for a number of years, and then we did a spin-off company that I'm going to talk about. But my focus has been on whether or not the work we're doing is making any difference. Are we winning? Are we moving in the right direction? That also goes to the idea that I believe that we have a responsibility to make it easier to do good work. That when we're building tools that for decision makers, that we need to make it easy to make those decisions. And that's a constant battle of trying to get out of our own way. And then I also believe that we tend to measure accurately the things that we value the most. So we'll focus on measuring things that we really care about, especially if there's a transaction that's occurring, and especially when it involves dollars or money of some sort. But we're really lacking in our world right now in accurately measuring where we're going, and I want to talk a little bit about that. So we start with, in my new organization called ARC, we start with LEAD. So LEAD has 90,000 projects in 165 countries. It's 19 billion square feet of space. And what we're doing is trying to take technology and exponentially expand the impact that LEAD is having in the world. So I'm going to tell a little story about how a decision that we made about how people relate to each other and the impact that it had. So around 2009, 2010, Richard was there, Richard Graves. We were dealing with whether or not we should create regional versions of the same system, because the common sense at the time was that regional rating systems would more accurately reflect the ecological issues and so on. We made a different decision. We said, instead of creating regional systems, we're going to create one system for the whole world, and we're going to bring the whole world in to work on that one system. And what you'll see, these are LEAD projects happening over time. So this is the globe, in case you can't see it well. You see, and this is time happening down here. And I want you to see what happens when we get to 2010, and we decided to create a single system for the whole world. Here we are at 2006. It's still completely an American system. Now, here we go. And to me, so this isn't cumulative, this is just how they're happening over time. To me, this is one of the most fascinating stories of anthropology. This is essentially the heat map of LEAD projects now in the world. And you can see that the impact that we've had is in primary markets. So it's primary markets, Class A office buildings. And we've completely changed how they're built. That's fascinating. And it's really cool. But what we haven't done is impact the rest of the built environment. We haven't been able to touch it. And that's a lot of what this new company is about. It's about trying to go deeper and broader into the built environment, making it easier for people to know whether to provide documents that say that you did the thing that you said you were going to do. And then we certify it. Now what we're doing is we're flipping it on its head and saying, you give us your data from the building and we will give you a score back and tell you how you're doing. So I see LEAD is really like the diet book. It's telling you the things you need to do to get healthier, to lose weight. ARC is the scale. It's telling you whether or not you actually did it. But now ARC is connected to LEAD. So our mission in ARC is to connect all actions that lead to higher quality of life. That's an incredibly broad mission. And that's why I get to come here. Because quite obviously, like you'll see that we're measuring a very short list of things right now, and we need to dramatically expand it. We do it with a score. So our key difference is, instead of having a set of technical discussions about kilowatt hours or kBTUs or gallons or liters, we create a score that is communicable all the way up and down the chain. So you can talk to people in the building, you can talk to people on the street, and simply say, we're improving or we're not improving. We're getting better or we're not getting better. And we believe that the power of that allows us to take a complex, vast amount of information and boil it down to a very simple yes or no. I'm going to skip this for time's sake. Our vision is a score of 0 to 100 for every place on the planet, simply to allow people to compare themselves to each other. We believe that we understand each other through the way that we liken ourselves to each other. I come together, pare, compare, I liken myself to you, that's how I know who I am. Let me talk about measurement for a moment. This is my wood shop. I built this in 1993, and it's one of my favorite spaces on the planet. This is a bench. This is a bench dog. It's essentially it's there to hold a piece of wood. And this is the bench dog, maybe some of you can't see it, holding a piece of wood. This is me making a benchmark. Now a benchmark is a fascinating thing because what it allows me to do is, because I have this very accurate measurement, I can cut 1,000 pieces of wood or 10,000 pieces of wood without having to measure each one. And I get incredible accuracy. But the benchmark is only good for my shop. I can't take that mark to another shop. I can, but it's not very efficient. Metrics are really good for moving information. Here's a set of metrics, inches. And the cool thing about metrics is that they're shareable among tools once they're standardized. So I can take even this ruler, doesn't fit in my pocket, but this one hooks on my pocket and I can carry it to the next shop and measure out the same thing. So I can use these metrics to say, okay, now let's do the same benchmark. The reason this is important is because right now, we love to say the word benchmarking in our industry, and we have no idea what we're saying. Everybody is using it differently, and everybody is thinking about it completely differently. But we're trying to standardize the way we measure these things, and we can see example after example in our lives where standardization has completely changed how we think about ourselves in relationship to each other. We built a platform, we've invested a lot. Janine's on the board of U.S. Green Building Council, and they've been incredibly supportive of helping us build this platform. The coolest thing, it has a score for a whole building, but we now have a score of 0 to 100 for each of the categories, making it the first energy score in the world, global energy score, the first global water score. And the score is calibrated for 0 carbon on the energy side. 0 carbon is a perfect score. 0 carbon on site, and out of 3,200 projects, we only have 1 that's close. That's telling me a lot, essentially, because we have a lot of leaders in the system, and they're talking about regeneration, but they're still quite a ways away. So that's an important thing for us to understand. But now, because we have this information, we can give you back the metrics. We can tell you how much carbon is associated with your project. these are art projects in the first year. Now we're in 112 countries, happening since December 2017. So again, the idea that we connect, that we can use technology as a system. We have, I know I'm just about out of time, right? Is it 1 minute left?
Yeah.
Okay. I just love these dots. So in the first year, we have a 1.4 billion square feet in the system, 3,200 buildings. We're in 112 countries. And the system, we've scaled the system to measure in different dimensions. So we've created LEED for transit. We couldn't do LEED for transit before because we couldn't create an energy benchmark because we were trying to use Energy Star, which is a US system. But now we were talking to Delhi Metro. Now we have LEED for transit where we're doing Delhi Metro, Shanghai Metro has come in, Jaipur Metro has come in. Right now we're certifying the buildings in the transit system, but next we're going to be certifying the lines so we can track the difference between the red line. We've dramatically expanded the metrics to show how flexible the system can be. We essentially built the Portland plan into the human experience category, which tracks prosperity, equity, health, safety, etc. And I'll end with this, because to me the coolest thing that we can do right now, this does not include our cities in the pilot, but we know that we're tracking 14 million metric tons of carbon. I love that because I've been tracking LEED credits for years, and I can't tell you how much carbon is associated with those credits. Now I can tell you how much carbon is associated with people doing these actions. We're tracking 20 billion gallons of water, and in the buildings in the system, there are 250 million occupants. So 250, and that's the first year, so we're just getting started. I believe technology will allow us to scale to a different level and completely expand the things that we're measuring so we can start to measure this relationship of nature and humans.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Awesome.
So next time you walk in a LEED building, you see that cool little screen in the corner, now you know the story behind that. What I think is really, really relevant about this work is, many of you are probably familiar with the Myers-Briggs studies, and it looks like proportionally 3 out of 4 people are considered sensors they have the S in their Myers-Briggs category. And what sensors need is they need the ARC screen. They need that data because they're not necessarily intuiting, that's the other one, the N, what all of this means, but they get that data in real time. And the most common decision maker, they've done the studies, are S's, right? So having this kind of data at your fingertips, as well as being easily translatable across so many different audiences, is a huge part of helping us make better choices. You know, how are we, some people don't even know they feel sick until they take their temperature, right? They need to see it on a thermometer rather than sort of sensing it that way. So that's part of these tools, which is really powerful.
And,
so thank you
also there's something called social reference theory that says one of the fastest ways to get to personal change is to change who it is you compare yourself to. So, and I used to say, when I talked about this in the past, I used to say your kid is like really interested in Gordon Gekko or Donald Trump. I used to actually say that long before. But say your kid compares herself to Gordon Gekko, right, in Wall Street, and then reads about Gandhi and says that's who I want to be like. And so for biomimicry, we often think of it as comparing ourselves to the rest of the natural world, right? And that's a way for us to move to change. So I do think there is something about this and allowing us to, there's something evolutionary about allowing us to see how others are doing and understand it's possible, right? Mm-hmm. So I think they're important things. Thank you.
Awesome. Great.